Okay. Okay, we are live now.
Yay.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Segar Charity Clinic session 1. We're going to talk about framing and how to whip your opponent to submission with Kak Daud. Yay!
Yay!
So my name is Samuel and this is Irene. We will be your host today. And also, since we're going to use this seminar as a charity, don't forget to donate any kind of money that you have. The link for donation will be in the description. And yeah, with that said, we're going to start the seminar now, yeah. Since we have Kak Daud here. Yay. Okay, Kak Daud, the floor is yours.
Check. Hi everyone, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, wait. Let me set a couple of things first. All right. Hi everyone. Welcome to my debate seminar. My name is Daud Loudoe and I'm from University of Surabaya. First of all, before I start everything, I would like to say thank you very much for the Mimsagar organization for a very great initiative. For quick introduction for all of you, that the reason why we have this seminar is because we want to fundraise or helping our brother and sister in Eastern Sutangara who just become a victims of the Sarodian cycle. So we hope that this seminar is free, but we hope that every one of you that have a capacity to help, you please do donate, and yeah, so more people could be impacted by this seminar, not only you guys who watch this seminar. All right. So, what are we going to talk today? So, we're going to talk about framing and how to whip your opponent to submission. I know the title sounds kind of kinky. Thank you to Devi, my friend, who inspired me to have this title. All right, move to next slide. All right, before I start everything, a general friendly reminders to everyone. First of all, it is not absolute. What do I mean is that in debate or in life in general, nothing is absolutely true or nothing is absolutely wrong. So everything that I'm going to tell you, probably it can be true or it can be wrong. But hopefully, with the years of experience, the probability for it to be true is getting higher. So just take it with a grain of salt. Second of all, it's personalized. People have the different approach in debate, have different styles. So what works on me probably not works on you. I'm going to tell you that what works on me. So if it works on you, that's good. If it's not, that I'm so sorry, or probably it only works on you partially. So take what you can take, leave what you cannot take. And lastly, for the sake of accountability, not everything that I'm going to tell you is 100% my original idea or original thought. The knowledge that I'm going to share are the things that I got from a lot of training with coaches and watch a lot of debate seminars. So yeah, just for the sake of accountability. Move. All right, what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about three things in this big seminar. First, what is framing and why it is important. Second, how to make strategic framing. And lastly, that framing in whip speeches. Okay, so we're going to talk about the first one. What is framing and why it is important? Throughout all this time, we've been exposed with the multiple definition of framing. Some people say that framing is how to make your case sounds more persuasive. Some people say that framing is to make your case sounds more beautiful. Some people even think that framing is about being more politically correct, which I don't think that's a correct definition. But I'm going to tell you that my own definition of framing that I will also use to the entirety of this debate seminar. So for me, framing is all about how you make your case and your team become important. It is also the reason why framing is important to make you seen as important in the debate. Move. So, what are the importance of framing, or why should I frame my argument or my case? Three reasons. First, it makes the judge biased to you because I think that everyone wants to win in the debate. So you want to make sure that the debate operate as much as you want it to operate. So the judge also could follow you. So probably they will have more bias to you as the one that said everything. Second of all, emboldening the argument's likeliness. When you frame the debate, you frame the situation and characterization. It not only proves that why your case is strategic, but it also make your case is likely to happen because you already set and frame everything to be exactly like what you want. And last but not least, it's important to make your argument more resistant. So previously, without framing, if you just enter the debate and throw argument here and there, it's very easy for your opposition to come and to just rebut your case. But if you already frame it in a nice way, they need to have an extra effort if they want to discharge argument, because right now they're no longer only able to discharge you by simply rebut you, but they also need to reframe or recharacterize debate, which also make your case more stronger, because there was multiple time when I win the debate simply not because my opposition do not respond to my case, simply because they responded without necessarily outframe or change the framing of the debate. Before I continue, like, please wait for a minute. All right. Hi, I am back. I am so sorry. There was a little bit disruption I need to take care of. So yeah. So those are generally the reason that why framing is important. Move. Now let's talk about how to make a strategic framing. There are three ways for you to do that. Notice that framing, sometimes people think that framing is very identical to BP debate because that's the word that you listen to or you hear the most in BP debate instead of other format of debate. But actually, framing applies in everything, every debate format. I mean, because regardless your position, either you're opening or either you are closing, you still need to frame. You need to frame every argument that you have so it can become stronger. So this is what I'm going to tell you how you frame debate even since the very beginning when you become opening government. The reason why people really hate to become opening government because they feel that they are helpless. They cannot do anything. They speak, they deliver their speech, and nothing that they can do, and they just sit and listen and watch their case getting destroyed by their opponent, especially by closing opposition, for an example. So the framing since the very beginning in PM speech is important to make your cases more resistant. What you need to do, first thing, to create a good framing, you need to understand the burden and the specific implementation of every wording inside of the motion. And you should push that burden to your opponent. It can make your opponent life harder. For example, I have three different motions, and let's talk one by one. This is just an example to make everything easier so you can easily understand everything. So, the first motion, the first example about this house regret the dominant narrative of rationality as an ideal approach to life. Some people think that this motion is kind of hard for government team. Like, how can I define or defend a world when people cannot be rational? How could I operate an argument when I need to defend that people, it's okay for people being irrational or whatsoever? So this is how you can play framing and make your life easier, because you need to understand the burden and every wording inside of the motion. For example, these motions practically do not require you to defend irrationality or emotionality as a whole. Because this motion talk about this has regard the dominant narrative of rationality. So you can frame the debate by entering the debate and tell the judges that the burden of opening government is not to tell you that why rationality is bad, because you also agree that rationality serves a benefit at some degree, but what you regret and oppose is the dominant narrative of rationality. So the burden of opposition is not to tell you that why rationality is good in general, but they need to tell and prove to you that why rationality, that being super dominant, and when you expect everyone to be rational 24/7, is the world that they want to live in. First, it makes you easier to approach the debate as a government team, because right now you will not defend the world when people go crazy here and there, but it also make an extra burden for your opposition to prove not only about why rationality is good, but why rationality should be that dominant, and it can overcome any other, and it should overcome any other approach to life, for example. This is the first example about how you can play and push burden to make your opposition or your opponent life harder. Second example about this how support the rising trend of celebrity taking a key role in activism. What would you do if you become opposition? So probably your government team will talk about how it is very important because celebrity have a lot of masses. They have a lot of influence. They can gain a lot of number and supporter for your activism, for an example. And I think that those are a very, very much good benefit. Which I think that if opposition come up and say that, oh, we do not need celebrity, and um that benefit is not that important, I don't think that is strategic, because that's actually a good thing. And it's also harder for you as an opposition to tell people that why having a more number or more follower is that. So instead of telling them that why you do not want to have a celebrity in activism, you should focus to say that you still want to have celebrity involved in activism, but you do not want the celebrity to take a key role. Then you can explain what the key role that you're talking about. For example, the key role of negotiating a policy, talk to a local politician, or whatsoever. Those are the things that you do not want celebrity to do and play that role inside of the activism. It also makes your government team's case about the benefit that they want to have is less exclusive, because right now when you still have celebrity uh in your bench, then their argument is not that exclusive. So it's also an example about how as an opposition you could be more strategic. And last but not least, the last example about this house believes that state should never gentrify culturally significant areas. Some people will directly argue that why this culturally significant area is very much important. It serves a lot of purposes. They want to protect the most vulnerable actor, the indigenous individual, or whatsoever. What will happen if you're opposition and how you will reframe the overall debate? This is what I did to make my government team life harder. Instead of I argue to them that why gentrification is good in general, I push the burden to them and tell them that this motion requires them to defend why they should not do gentrification in every situation, because the motion talk about this as a state, they should never gentrify. So I put extra burden to my government team to explain that why in every situation, even if it's something that's very urgent, even if the people is uh, very much miserable, do not have anything to survive, why it's still principally okay for them to not do any gentrification or have this individual. So from a burden and a wording, you can change the overall dynamic of the debate simply by understanding it. And you also can push a burden that makes your opponent lives even harder. The second um, way is that create a general consensus as what you want. For an example, the motion talk about this house will aggressively use war on drug strategy. In creating a framing, you want everything to bias to you, So you need to also understand that what your opposition would like to say. So probably your opposition will talk about how you will still have another way, how being aggressive on war on drug is something that's very bad, how it can, how you're supposed to help and rehabilitate people who involved in drug crimes or whatsoever. I think there's a very convenient case for opposition to run. But how to make things easier for you? Because these motions intuitively sounds very cruel in government team. So first thing you need to do is that the consensus of context and characterization. So what I'm going to say is that the reason or the motion that the government want to aggressively use war on drugs is that when government in the situation, when the other alternative is not working, or the issues is very systematic and it's very hard for you to change. That is the reason why the context of this motion most likely happen in the countries that have a very huge drug issues. We're talking about countries like Mexico, for an example, or countries in South America, for an example, where they have a drug cartel that's actually controlling neighborhood, for example. It's you characterize how the neighborhood is very dangerous and people have no other option either than join the cartel or they need to hide and do not get any food, for an example. I think that it set the characterization to push your opposition that why in that such situation, the situation that requires this motion to be applied, they do not want to do that. So it can simply cancel everything that your opposition already prepared because your opposition will not cannot suddenly come up and say that oh the situation is not really that bad. We want to use the Scandinavian models or whatsoever. It just does not make sense because that cannot be applied in the situation of war on drugs because in those type of countries, war on drugs is not going to exist anyway because you also can explain that how war on drugs takes a lot of capital and how it's something that's very tiring. So it's less likely for government to directly use this strategy in the situation where when the drug crime is not that urgent or is not that big. Second general consensus that you can make to frame the debate is that you need to set the comparative. It still have a relation with the pushing burden that you need to set the comparative is that you need to understand also the trade-off that you're going to create by telling you that the comparative is debate under us of the house there might be a casualty but this is the comparative that opposition should take and what they should defend and why they have to defend the world when the casualty will be way much bigger because you practically have no other alternative to fight these drug crimes or cartel. So when you do these two things, you make the debates not narrow, but very biased to you and create a situation that probably could help you to run your argument. But of course, in making framing, you also need to be that charitable. You need to be make sense, and you cannot suddenly drag the motion to specific area that we only want to talk about Indonesia without necessarily telling me that why it is the most likely case or why that is the most likely context. And lastly, to frame your argument, you need to tell the judge why it matters by telling them that why the weighing that you give, the burden that you push should be the metrics of the judgment. So it's practically you have the judge to adjudicate the debate, and judge will be very much happy if you do that because you practically have 8 speeches. The judge also a human; they can be tired. So the team that can have the judge as much as possible probably the win that will be listening more. So next. How to make it matters. I think that this is a question that people have a lot. I mean that some people say that, oh, I know how to why framing is important. I know that I should make my case matters, but how I can make my case matters. So how to make it matters and how to make your opening matters, especially when you apply it as a closing when you try to enter the debate. For example, you want to sound better than your opening, or even as an opening, you also need to frame this is a trend that people sometimes forget that you also need to frame the debate as if that what you already said in the opening debate is the most important thing. So anything that your closing bench will come up with will be significantly less important than what you already said. How to do that? First, you can do the strategy of quantification. You can tell that your case is more important and matters the most because it tackles the needs of bigger audience. It help more people. It have a greater and bigger impact. So uh, it's practically in framing to tell you that why your impact is really that big and really that much important. Second of all, you also could play in the vulnerability and depth of impact. The second way is practically a direct response to the first strategy. For an example, that, oh, my opening already gave a good and great and big impact or whatsoever. How am I supposed to enter the debate? So you can play in the idea of vulnerability and depth of impact. You can explain that even if under yourself the house you're going to talk about a specific actor. So even if this specific actor do not have that much population or do not uh, that big in number, that what but why talking about them is the most important thing. You can talk about why they are the most vulnerable actors throughout a lot of oppression that already been given to, or you can talk about the depth of impact. You can talk about why the impact for this vulnerable actor is much more meaningful than the impact that was given to the bigger population. For example, you can talk about how people that your opening want to defend is practically able to defend themselves without necessarily having their proposal, or might do not get that much significant impact from their proposal. So even if the proposal is big in number, it's not that impactful. So better go with the theme and explanation to defend the actor that is more vulnerable, even if they are small in number, but it is that much impactful for them because they have no other way, for example, to survive, or probably the oppression is really that bad until that they really need this a form of help from the proposal that you guys want to defend. Third way is operations. This is the thing that you can. This is the thing that you listen more, like when your closing suddenly come up and steal your opening by saying that, oh, we're going to mechanize everything that they say or whatsoever. Notice that it might work, it might not work. You need to assess first. Some people come up very confident in closing by trying to steal their opening by saying that, oh, we want to mechanize that. And then when they lost, they did not accept the loss by saying that, oh, I'm better than my opening because I mechanized that. Just because you mechanize something doesn't mean that you can automatically win, because you need to also assess the degree of that mechanization. Like, for example, whether or not the argument really can run without a huge mechanization. If the argument is something that's very intuitive and do not need you to have a massive mechanization, with that give you a mechanization, the case is already fly. So if you come up and try to enter the debate and try to steal by using this operationalization or mechanization um, strategy, it might work or it might not work, for an example. So this is something that's very tricky when you do a certain approach with this type of strategy. You need to analyze first the degree of uh, the mechanization, or how big the hole was in your opening until your mechanization is very crucial. Second of, so you need to explain why it's something that's very crucial. For example, I'll give you another example of the motion so you guys can have a clearer picturization about it. For an example, the motion talk about this house believes that this house believes that media should refrain from taking stances on the innocent or guilt of people who have been charged with the crime but not yet convicted of the crime. So, from this motion, you have an opening that have a great argument, like 3 or 4 arguments talking about how media should take stances or whatsoever. But your government, for example, your opposing opposition and your government already talk about how it is very irrational stances because you take a stance for something that you do not know, for example, you do not know they are really guilty or not, but you still want to take stances. That's what opening government told you, that opening opposition told you about how taking stances is important to raise awareness for people, so people could put eye more to the investigation or whatsoever. But why your operationalization is important and how you enter this type of debate with this strategy. You can enter this by tell them how crucial this operationalization, because it is the only way to make opposition case can run. Because without justifying why in such conditions, when people still not convicted, it is okay for you to do any type of action as a media. So what I did is that I operationalized the motion. I explained to them this motion talk about the the people already or have been charged but not convicted. What does it mean? If they're already being charged, there are already a degree of investigation. Because in the court and justice system, you need to file the case first. There will be a lot of interview. You're calling a lot of witness until you really until you actually really put a charge. So probably when you give a witness, this these victims already file a report with some degree of evidence. So this type of people is not fully free, or this stance is not on the basis of something that's very random, but there are already a degree of proof. Then I proceed to explain that why this small degree of proof is a enough justification to take a stance as a media, for example. So this is one of example that how to make your operationalization become a big thing in the debate and can be a tipping point of why you can win the debate. Third of all is exclusivity. You might listen to a lot of complaint from the judges. They say that, oh, your case is not exclusive. It is something that good. It is big, but it is not exclusive. But sometimes your judge never tell you that how to make your case exclusive. The best way to make your case exclusive is try to find a unique characteristic of the certain actor, of certain proposal, for example. Um, Probably we can use the previous motion about celebrity taking a key role in activism, for an example, and why you want to defend that as an opposition. How you can play exclusivity is that you need to tell us that what is the contribution that only celebrity could give in this key role, in playing this key role, compared to other like politician or activism, and why it is something that very much important and the other actors cannot access. For an example, in taking a key role and create a discussion and negotiation, celebrity have more follower to push the other part of the discussion, so they have more number to push the other part or other people inside the discussion, so you probably will have higher and bigger power to push a certain agenda that you want, compared to politician of activism that probably their number is not that much, so in negotiating a certain policy they do not have that much leverage, for an example. And this is something that's very exclusive that will exist under your side of the house. So probably if you're opening on talk about how having number is good, you can be very exclusive by telling you that why the numbers that you get from celebrities and the numbers that you get from the activists also different, the people is also different, why they are a better number, for example. So capitalize the uniqueness that you can have uh, in an argument, and you also could prove that why other type of alternative that become the comparative in the debate is not working properly. That is the reason why your case is important. Lastly, is about being as charitable as possible. So if you're closing and you're opening already have a great framing, like OG have a great framing, OO have a great framing or whatsoever, what you're supposed to do as a closing is that the last resort that you can do is that being charitable and play in your opposition framing that it is not, sometimes it can be tricky because people can say that you're knifing your opening, but you can frame yourself as that, as if you're not nice in your opening. You can frame yourself as if you are a nice people that want to engage to your opposition best scenario, which means to their best framing and their condition, and why you still win in that condition, and why everything that they want to achieve better under your side of the house. It also could make you seen, it could make your case stronger because your case can be seen as a case that can be applied in the multiple and diverse scenario. So it's also the reason that why you can make it important, and how to make it matters. How to fight a framing, you should do it with the same approach. For example, if you're opening frame the debate, you use a strategy to characterize the debate and contextualize the debate. The only way for you to outframe them is to give another context and make and tell the judge why your context is most likely better or even more true than the context that's given by your opposition. So match the way you battle their framing is by using the same strategy. All right, move. Framing in web pages. This is finally the most one of the important thing because it is especially very important in the BP debate. Why is that so? Because as a web speeches, it is very hard for you. You already have, like, if you're a government whip, you already have like 6 people talk. If you're opposition whip, you already have 7 people talk. And it is very much hard for you to A minus everything that they say. To respond to everything that they say, it's kind of impossible. But do the judge will erase that from their expectation to you? Probably not. They're still going to expect you to respond to everyone. They do not care whether or not it's possible or not. So when the expectation for you to be as much as responsive as possible, then the best way for you to handle that issue is to respond in an effective way. So because you cannot A minus everything, the thing that you can do is that you need to frame them out to make themselves less important, or make them case is not exclusive, make their case as if they have no operationalization or whatsoever. Use everything that I already gave to you, point it out, and explain that why those things achieve better under your side of the house. In web speeches, what are you supposed to do? First of all, you need to analyze the debate and analyze your team. Oh, by the way, if you guys have any question, you can give it to the Google form, and I will answer it there. So you need to analyze first who is the strongest team and who is the weakest team in the debate. And second of all, you also need to analyze what is your strength and what is your weakness. Why it is important? To analyze your team's strength and weakness is very important because you understand at which part you need to focus your airtime, or at which part you need to spend most of your airtime. Because, for example, if you understand that your team is very good at responding to the other bench's case, but your case sounds not that much important, or your case sounds kind of similar to your opening because your member was overwhelmed with responses and make a case for an example, what you need to do is that you should spend most of your time since the beginning of your speech to tell the judge that why your case is better than your opening. But if you think that your case is already good, already distinct, already nice, but because your member was overwhelmed by creating a huge distinction from your opening and to tailor a good case, then you need to focus to respond to that. So this is the first thing and general rule of thumb as a web speaker. So because web speaker is very much versatile, you have no I think that web speeches is one of the most versatile. You do not have a uh, certain column that you need to check. It's different from PM because PM have column that you need to check, or I already set up, I already put the definition, I already uh, tell them what is my stance, for example. But whip speeches is more versatile. So you can shift your approach. Either you want to start with framing first, or you want to start with responding first, then tell the judge that why your case is important or better. And last but not least, analyze also the debate that who is the strongest team and who is the weakest team. It's important because if the team's already that weak, you can simply point out a mistake and hole in the case. You do not need to put that much airtime. You already lose the debate, but just do not underestimate a team that you seeing weak. Still adjudicate them with a very objective measure, so you really understand is they really that weak or not. So there are two cases that you might face as a weak speech because you're in the closing team. The first case is that you have a very strong opening. Your OG and OO is very much strong. Then what you're supposed to do is that you not only respond your opening. For example, your CG and you have OG and O that's very strong. What you need to do is that you need to rebut or outframe. Your rebuttal should not only stop at the level that you say their case is untrue, their case is not likely or whatsoever. It's not only about responding their case, but how to make your response sounds better than your opening. Because probably you're going to respond to the same point that your opening already respond to. So probably you're going to respond it to LO, which the point that already being responded by DPN, for example. So when you have a response, then you need to tell the judge that why your response is better. So because in a VP debate, everything under the sky can call as an extension or contribution. So you need to make sure why your response is more important. For example, you can tell the judge that your opening team response is just a form of neutralization. But why under your side of the house, the response goes to the extent that why it's not only neutralized, but why things will be way much worse under their side of the house. This type of response will do two jobs for you. It's not only doing a job to discharge your opening, it's also doing a job to discharge your opening because you will be seen that you're having a better response, which means you'll have a better contribution and extension. In the second issues or in the second case, when you have a strong closing, what you need to do is that you need to drag the relevancy of the debate by tell the judges that why your opening debate was weak, because again, give the reason that that I already told you at the previous slides on why their case is not exclusive, their case is not important or whatsoever, and drag that why the team that fulfill the burden more is your team in the in the debate in the closing, or in the closing team the actor that you guys discuss is more important, or in the closing team you guys have bigger comparative. For example, in the debate like this house regrets something and you're opening on the talk about why it is bad in gov team or why it is good in the opposition, but they never gave any alternative of how the work it looks like when they regret and do not regret that, and you drag the relevancy as if the closing team are the only teams that talk about the comparative and alternative. So that's other reason that why you can leave your opening and create a strong closing. So as the web speech in BP especially, your job is not to rebut. Your job is being an adjudicator, and you can judge and analyze everything. So you can put a bias to adjudicator to believe in your adjudication or believe in your assessment of the debate. So that's what make BP web speech extremely different with the web speech in Asian parliamentary or even Austral's parliamentary or whatsoever, because it serves a bigger purpose. The burden is also bigger because you practically also have a bigger time to think, for example, inside of the debate. So your burden is at not only to respond, but to also frame. the debate and create a overall adjudication. So I think that those are generally what you can do and on how you can apply framing in web speeches and how you can do framing in general. Uh, I think that it's already like more than 30 minutes. It's already exceeding the time that I'm supposed to talk within. So I'm going to directly jump to Q&A session. Next. Yeah.
Check. Hi everyone. Since we right now we are on the Q&A session, please do fill the form that we have provided in the chat so that so that we can gain more insight. Okay, but before that though, don't forget to donate by clicking the link in here bit.ly/ms fundraising. Okay, Irene, let's see the form.
Okay, so the first question, I will read it aja lah ya. Hi Kak, thanks for the insightful seminar. I have a question. How do we utilize framing in the early speaker? Because I notice framing is something that later speakers tend to focus on. Is there a way or example to utilize framing particularly in Prime Minister?
All right. Hi. Thank you for the questions, for whoever you are. I think that everything that I already explained to you are the things that can be applied in Prime Minister. Because if you go back to the slides, for example, probably I will share the slide or the Orcom will share the slide if it's possible. I do not know. You can read it as well. So what it is very much possible for you to do that as a Prime Minister, because when I say that you need to push the burden, you need to set the contextualization of the debate. For example, where this debate operates at, like why the situation is most likely like that, or you push the burden that this is the burden that I should prove, and this is the burden that my opposition should prove. It's practically a way for you to tell the judges what is your stance. And those are the things that I told you at the session of how to make a strategic framing are the things that I did in a PM speech. Why it is important to do it in PM speech and why you should focus to do that in PM speech, not in other later speech, because it set the ground for everything in the debate. And you want to make sure that after your speech is PM, everyone will operate in the frame that you already put. And it's kind of hard for you to suddenly put a framing in later speaker because you will have a different nuance in a theme, especially in opening theme. So everything that I tell you should be focused on PM speech. So I hope it can answer the question. So it's not supposed to only in. So this is a different framing. The different framing in first speaker or PM is to set the ground for everything and how to make the debate works properly or works in your favor. But the difference of the different framing that you do in deputy is not a framing to set everything, but a frame to tell everyone that why everything that you said in opening is the most important, and why everything that your closing said, everything that they will come up with will be significantly less important. So both of the speaker have an obligation to do a framing, because I think that framing is the thing that you should always put in your speech, because framing also what makes an average to above average speaker or speech different. So yeah, that's probably the easiest way if you want to distinguish the type of framing you guys need to do. All right.
Okay, there's also another question. Hi Kak, I want to ask how to be not dismissive if being whipped, because yeah, I know that we can do it through framing, but how we can show that we are not dismissive in our framing, because it's really hard to respond to every argument.
Yep, I think this is a very nice question, and this is what I'm always do as a whip speech. I mean, when I already have a strong member, like I have if I have already have a really great member, that they practically already gave a lot of good argument, a good responses. For example, what should I do as a web speech? Is that I do not need to respond to everything that my opposition say. I will simply just agree that all of their benefit might happen, their benefit might occur. So practically, I say that in their best case, it can happen. But why, for example, the aftermath of the benefit is not going to be that good, or the harm they created can outweigh the benefit that they say. So instead of I need to A minus all of their premises one by one, I will simply jump that step by explain that, yeah, I agree with everything they say, but the aftermath is going to be that much worse. Or I agree with every benefit that they say, but their benefit is not as big as the benefit that I say. So it is not you become very dismissive. You already concede to their best case, and then you frame it. So the reason why you sometimes sounds or accused as being dismissive is when you simply throw them away without any attempt to engage at all. But I think that engaging to their best case and frame it out is already a form of engagement. So supposedly you're not being seen as dismissive. All right, I think that's all for the second question.
Okay. There's the third question. Hello, Kak. Sometimes I struggle when emotion requires a heavy context like Middle East or IR. Do you have any tips on doing framing in a heavy context motion?
My tips is this one. Read, guys. I do not have any other way for you. In the happy IR motion, the only things that you should do is read. But I'm not a typical guy that read a lot. So the best thing that you could do in a very, very much miserable life that you practically cannot do anything out of it, what you can do are first capitalizing everything that you read in the context line, because I think Acor is not going to be that much evil to not give you any type of context at all. Utilize every word inside of it and frame the debate that how the debate should only operate based on everything that the context line says. So that's how you make sure that your bare minimum information is enough by narrow the debate to what the context slide says. That is the my last resort when I do not know anything about it. Secondly, probably you can try to analyze about the type of countries. For example, you do not really know what's going on in Syria, for example, or you do not really know about what's happening um, about the civil war in South Sudan, for example. The bare minimum that you can do is that you analyze the countries in South Africa. What is their condition? Most likely, they're not that much economically developed. So probably people there, uh, the fight there is a fight out of necessity, for example, because people need food or whatsoever. Or you do not really understand what's going on right now between Iran and US, or why suddenly China come up and make a new deal with Iran, for example. You have no idea about that. But at least you can analyze about like the condition of Iran, for an example, or you can talk about, oh, probably Iran is not that much um it's not much intuitive for me, but China is everywhere. People talk about China, so you can try to talk from the perspective that you are uh, closer to. So probably you can talk about China incentive and what they want to do. So IR is a bad, not bad. IR is a very hard motion, but also exciting at the other part, because you practically have a lot of angle that you can uh, use as an approach to the motion. So if you do not know something, you can try to approach in other way by analyzing other way. If you do not know anything, just hope that your opponent know less than you. That's the best thing that you can do. All right.
Okay. Yes, Sam.
Okay, if you okay, okay, guys. I think that's the last question that we're going to answer today in this session. If you have any further question, you you can like ask in the form that we have provided to you in the chat box, and we will try to contact Kak Daud for to answer it in the description in the in the description in this video. With that said, also please don't forget to donate in the following link. In tiny in the bit.ly/ms fundraising to because after all this seminar is free but is made for to create a fundraising for our friend in Nusa Tenggara Timur who is facing a catastrophe recently. With that said, since there are no more questions, we are going to end this seminar session. Yay! Thank you everyone for joining our session for today, and we will see you soon in tomorrow. We have two sessions. First, we have Kak Devi session about cyber technology. We also have the session for Kak Rizky about international trade and global supply chain. With that said, we're very thank you for joining us today in our seminar, and we wish you good luck and happy debating. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kak Daud.
Thank you, Kak Daud.
Thank you, Kak Daud.
Thank you, Mem Segat.
Apakah sudah dimatikan?